on a bipartisan basis, something that that isn't going to, kill our economy, move jobs overseas, and also recognizes the fact that India and China and some of the other developing economies are sending emissions up. In fact, China's surpassed us. Most people don't know this. China puts 2 new coal-fired facilities on per week. You hear me? 2 a week. We could shut everything down in this country in terms of our greenhouse emissions, and if this thing continues, and some people are talking about clean coal technology. Clean coal technology is needed for us because we got $250 million, or 250 years of coal supply. It's important in Ohio because 85% of our energy comes from coal, but it's more important to the world. We have got to jumpstart this technology and understand that people are going to use coal. So it's our, from our own point of view and from the world's point of view in terms of emissions, and I've got a bipartisan bill, another legacy issue that I've got in several Republicans, several Democrats, and we're trying to get the Asia-Pacific Partnership Group. That's a group that was set up from legislation we sponsored 4 years ago, and they have got Australia, India, China, South Korea, Japan, China, now Canada's joined. And the purpose of it would be to set up a special committee that would reach out around the world for the best technology where you can capture carbon and you can sequester it. And it's from a public diplomacy point of view, the State Department thinks it's terrific because instead of our coming up with the technologies and then beating the Chinese over the head, and so you got to do this and you this, we all work together and we go out there. You ever heard of DARPA? That's the Defense Advanced Research Program. The reason why we're ahead of everybody in terms of defense is because we have this fund that looks out and says there's some science there that looks like it's got potential. We fund it. Or, and the alternative was see something that's really good and then help make it commercially viable. That's the kind of stuff that we need to be doing in terms of this environmental challenge that all of us have. Another legacy issue is the issue of oil. I wish all of you in this room could have been with me a month ago when I sat down with our national security people about the vulnerability of the United States of America because of our reliance on foreign sources of energy, particularly oil. And I don't know if you know this or not, but we send $360 billion overseas to other countries because we're now importing about 65% of our oil in this country. And a lot of those people, they don't like us. Venezuela, Nigeria, God only knows what's going to happen to the Nigerian economy in terms of their government situation. And so I joined with Byron Dorgan, and we've got a group of most of them are former generals and admirals and the CEOs of many of the major corporations. And what we want to do is we want to concentrate on finding more, using less, and having a situation where this country ultimately, in maybe a dozen years, could be identifying or using the natural resources that we have. In other words, the outer shelf, the continental shelf. Actually, this week it was great in the Energy Committee. They have now authorized us going into the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico, straightening some stuff out and up in Alaska. We're not talking about Anna, we're just talking about getting that going up there because they're all in court. And then going after those resources, and then having an aggressive program. This legislation would say that 80% of our vehicles would be electric by the year 2050. In other words, we're going to use less, and we're going to make sure that maybe in a dozen years we can tell the world, we don't need you anymore, okay? We don't need you anymore. And I want to say that if somebody, think about, you're in business. Howard, you're in business. Okay, you need oil to run, okay? I control the supply. I control the cost. And by the way, the money you're paying me, I use to hold your debt. The OPEC nations are big in holding the debt of the United States. You know, if that was a business deal, tomorrow I could put you out of business. And that's where we're at right now. And that's why this is a legacy project. I want out from under this. And the problem in this country is, folks, we have not harmonized our energy, our economy, our environment, and our national security. We've just concentrated on one part of this. In my opinion, that part of it is the environment. That's fine, and I'm all for it. But the fact is, you can't just do this in a vacuum. We've got to understand that we're in a global marketplace. In addition to that, we're working on the issue of nuclear power. And again, if you really want to do something about reducing greenhouse emissions, and by the way, there's a paper that I asked to pass out because it was published in the Nuclear News last year about what it's going to take to launch the nuclear renaissance in this country. But right now, I want all of you to know this, and the kids have got to have this information. My granddaughters think that our energy, our baseload energy, is going to come from wind and from solar. Now, maybe you don't know this. 0.8% comes from solar. 1.4% comes from wind. And the other renewable comes from hydropower. 50% from coal. 17% from gas. And the nuclear is 20%. But nuclear represents 70% of the emission-free energy in this country. And so if we're going to have base load to deal with our energy problems, I don't care, you can build all the windmills you want and all the solar power, it's not going to take care of our base load energy needs, which we're going to have to look out for in the future. Second of all, it's wonderful in terms of the environmental, because we are reducing, greenhouse gases when you use it. And last but not least, it's going to create one gigantic amount of economic activity. It's amazing what's happening. Yesterday I was at a press conference. Babcock and Wilcox is going to build these small nuclear reactors. And one of the big problems today with building the big ones, and by the way, we have 17 applications for 26 reactors right now at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, okay? We're on our way on this, in this area. But the problem is that the big reactors are only built one place in the world. Japan Steel. So you got to get in line. That's why you're seeing more and more of our energy companies go into business with the Japanese, because they're trying to get in line and take advantage of this thing. But this is Babcock and Wilcox, folks. They can build them right here in Ohio. And there's a tremendous amount of activity right now going on here in terms of getting prepared for this. In addition to that, manufacturing not only for the United States, but for the world. The head of the international agency says that we are going to have to build 32 nuclear power plants a year if we're ever going to reach our goals in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The other thing that's near and dear to your heart, and I'm sure Jolene spoke to you about it, is that I'm one of the 4 people that's going to be writing the, we are writing it now. That's the new transportation bill that we're going to have. And we haven't been fighting about what it's called, safe tea, Lou, or iced tea, or, we haven't really got to that. But Barbara Boxer will have some idea, I'm sure, about what we're going to call it. Anyhow, we're working very hard on that, and just as we need your help on the climate change. I guess, Howard, you're looking at that, and it's very important you start looking at how's this going to impact on our, and that's what I'm looking at, about 10 areas about how, if we can work some stuff out, maybe we can get it done, but we got to look out for that. And it's also the highway bill. We need your input. And Jolene was in the other day, last week, and we just said, I've got to work closely with her so that I can maximize that legislation for the benefit of our country and for the benefit of Ohio. And I got to tell you something, it's really nice to be one of the people writing the bill. Last time I was just a member of the committee. And, we did well. You mentioned 36% increase, and we were able to earmark $104 million. Earmarks are bad, huh? Yeah, bad earmarks. I want to tell you something. Earmarks are the dough, or the earmarks are the yeast that raises the dough.